All right, so we've got a number of individuals, Nate, obviously more than 400 people detained right now that are in this facility hoping to get into court. I mean, is there any date or is there any idea when these individuals could be going before a judge, or even if they get a chance to even talk to their lawyer, right, about what comes next?
There really isn't a timeline here, and there's two facilities actually these people are being held at in Georgia, and really so far what you needed to do is to get an attorney and pay anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 generally to get one of these writs of habeas corpus filed, and then to argue the case. And in this case out of Charlotte, the one that really kind of triggered this investigation for me, it's this case right here. It's an Egyptian man. We mentioned it in the story just there. He's a native Egyptian man, but had been seeking asylum here. This came across a federal website that I'm looking at regularly, related to the courts, and I flagged it, and I thought it was interesting because I knew if there was one, there had to be others out there, right? Because we have not heard anything about the legal process or rights of these people. They do have due process rights. That's really important to know. Mm-hmm. And in his case, he eventually successfully argued that he was wrongly being held without bond, and the judge said that you have to give him a bond hearing within 48 hours. Now, I don't know if he had that bond hearing. In the immigration world, you need an A number. I don't know if you've heard of this or you're familiar, but it's essentially this number that's a unique identifier that is attached to your name and home country that allows you, your family, journalists, whoever, to track where your immigration court situation stands, where your detention stands. And for this case, I don't have that A number, so I really don't know if he had that bond hearing. I would imagine he did have that bond hearing because as you saw from the Assistant Secretary of DHS, she told us we do follow the law until we get the Supreme Court to overrule a judge's order. And so I would assume in this case that this man has received his bond hearing. The question, though, is, Colin, how many more are out there like this? Because when you look through the court system, particularly, let me show you my process a little bit. I go to pacer.gov. It's this federal government court website, and I basically put the names of the wardens of these two Georgia facilities in my search bar. And there's just tons upon tons of these writs of habeas corpus. But when you click on the actual filing, you can't have access to it. How many names do we have right now from Operation Charlotte's Web? How many names has the government given us? Not many. So there are hundreds of others out there. By the way, these people were not on the worst of the worst list, that we don't know where their situation stands. The man at the center of our story that we told you about, Dennis, a few minutes ago, whose wife we talked to, fairly newlywed, he is now trying to get bond through a different process. Now that there is this kind of standing order to some degree that these people being detained, particularly the nonviolent ones, do deserve a chance at a bond hearing, they're trying to go through the process with ICE of just saying, hey, can you review the case to see if we can get bond? And the whole idea here, too, is that these deportation cases have a tendency to take a very long time. Mm-hmm. There's a massive immigration court backlog. Some people have said there's not enough judges. And so what happens is you have these people that are being detained at length, when in reality, most of the time in our criminal court system here, you can secure bond while you're awaiting trial. As long as you show up at trial, it's not going to be an issue. And in the meantime, maybe they can try to build their legal case. Maybe they can go back to work. These are things that they do have a right to. They have a right to a bond hearing. But because of where they were picked up, this is the key dispute. Because they were picked up in Charlotte and not at the Mexico-Texas border, attorneys say they deserve a bond hearing. Now, if they're picked up right upon entry into this country, that may be a different story. They may get mandatory detention and may quickly get moved out. In these cases, it does not seem like they're going to be deported quickly.
Wow. A lot to unpack there. I will ask, have the attorneys or the spouses, have they talked about the fear related to this? Because I think that's something that a lot of folks don't necessarily get to talk a lot about. And I think that's I still go down South Boulevard, and I have to be honest, a lot of the shops that I've seen from different ethnicities still aren't either open or, and I think people are still fearful of what could happen, of what might be around. So did they say anything about that of how to, calm the nerves, not only their defendant, right, but also the family that might be waiting for them? Because, as you said, there's no timeline for this. And it seems like these people could be held for years. I mean, who knows at this point?
Right. And a bond hearing doesn't mean they're not going to be deported ultimately. Let's just be clear there either, right? Like, regardless of their immigration status, all a bond hearing is going to do is decide whether or not they can be released, pay some money while they're waiting for their deportation order. The one woman you just heard from said that you could hear the fear in her husband's voice there. The Carolina Migrant Network is really trying to kind of pair up these families with attorneys who can take cases pro bono, even low bono, so there's less cost. That's a process. And, we've worked really hard on trying to identify people willing to share their stories in the aftermath of Operation Charlotte's Web. I have talked to just 2 families, and this is really dedicating a lot of time and resources to help the public understand what the impact of this operation was. We've been only able to track down 2 of them. And for one of those families, we needed a translator in the room. So there is a language barrier that I think is part of the problem of really communicating to the public the depth of this. There is also a fear situation. You have people that are now wrapped up in this system that perhaps don't want to say something that could set them back potentially even farther. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that. And there is the potential that this isn't the end of it.
Yeah.
We know that the government has said they really haven't left, right? And we know that the Department of Homeland Security has an office not far from where we sit right now. There is some thoughts that they may be back at some point in more force too. And so, what will be interesting is to see if this precedent holds, this legal precedent holds, or if the government's able to overturn it. What the government will tell you is we have the money to build more beds and to house as many people as we need at this point. And so they believe they want to keep these people detained because they say they are here illegally, they broke the law, and we don't want to release them back out into the street. Right. But again, like even in this case right here, nonviolent, not a flight risk. That's what the court documents say.
It's interesting. Like I said, it begs the question as to why some of these individuals are where they're at, and for how long they're going to be there. So a lot of questions. I know that we still need answers too, but it's tough because there's a lot of roadblocks, it seems, from the federal government, like you said, trying to get information on certain files that may not be there. So
yeah, and we've asked, Colin, we've asked for a breakdown of everyone taken into custody.
Yeah.
Congresswoman Alma Adams, citing our initial investigation, has asked for that same information. It's not been provided yet. And, part of this, too, has been the government said they were coming here to target the worst of the worst. And, our initial reporting found that wasn't always the case.
Right.
And even this most recent version of our investigation, looking into bond hearings, the cases we found, no criminal records that we're able to identify here that show these people are violent. So there's some different things going on here beyond even just immigration. Rights, due process rights, what the government says they're going to do, what they're going to actually do, transparency throughout this process. They have DHS has a worst of the worst website, which I look at regularly, that lists names and home countries and pictures of people they consider the worst of the worst. You can scan through that. A lot of these people are not on there. The people that I've identified are not in that list. So we're still kind of hungry for more information here. And I think it's really difficult too, Colin, and maybe you recognize this too. I mean, Charlotte has had such a busy and unusually high-profile news year, right? These new things keep happening here. Generally, all of them terrible, right, in one way or the other. And I think what happens is that if you don't dedicate to really figuring out what happened in each of these cases, whether it's that terrible plane crash last week or Operation Charlotte's Web, we're only going to get bits and pieces, right? We need to really commit to do the reporting, which is going to be a marathon for all of these things.
Absolutely. Right. And as we know, we've reported as well that in some of these operations, there have been American citizens wrapped up as well. So it does need accurate journalistic, ethics and integrity, all those things mix together to make sure that the story is correct. So obviously we're waiting that information. Appreciate you reaching out to DHS and anything else that you wanted to add to this, Nate?
No, I think we keep telling people that we run into that are in these circles of kind of trust of people that were taken up in this operation. If there is a story that's not being told or questions that need to be asked, please let us know. We're certainly not interested in headlines here, right? We want to do the actual work as fairly as possible, as with the lack of sensation, right? Just the reality. This is what's happening. And that's why I think this court case story is so important, because while we're all moving on about our life, people are being held without a chance at bond. And judges are saying the government can't do that.
Right.
Even for people who are here illegally. That is important that we tell the public. And I think that we wouldn't know that had we not been scouring federal court records, or have we not had connections with people in the community. Like for Dennis's wife, for example, we would have never connected with her had we not gained the trust of some people in this community. So I just think that whether it's this or anything, quite honestly, if we're missing something when it comes to our news reporting, we need to be called out and alerted to it so we can look into it. So it's kind of just me asking for a holiday present maybe of, let us help you and help the public be more informed in all of these situations that have happened this year and that will continue to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, a lot of the news that we get that ends up making an impact on people's lives comes from individuals in the community. So it's a great point. Appreciate your time, Nate. Make sure that you watch tonight. Tell me the times it'll be on.
It's here at 5:30.
All right, so it'll be on at 5:30 tonight. And then, of course, you can see our interview here on WCNC Plus anytime you would like. And then, over on WCNC.com. We've got more for you there. Nate, thank you. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break.